Cape Ann Report, and I'm your host, Maureen Aylward. Our topic, the Cape Ann Superintendents, they're back to school. Here with me at the table is Pam Beaudion from Manchester Essex School District and Rob Liebow from Rockport Public Schools. Welcome to Cape Ann Report.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's great to have you here. It is back to school, and you must be busy. Are things moving in school, Pam?
Starting Monday, the floodgates opened and people are registering for classes and last-minute residency changes, and life is returning to campus. It's wonderful.
Rob, any signs of life at Rockport?
Signs of life, yes. I mean, it's a great time of year because it's the one profession that sort of starts brand new every year. New kids, new faces, new teachers, and fresh start, and new goals and challenges, and that's one of the beauties of the profession.
Yeah, and even though school starts before Labor Day, it really just it's a marker in the calendar for both students and parents and teachers and staff and faculty at the schools. So just getting to one of the topics that I wanted to ask you about. Sure. Every school year starts new, as you said. Pam, I'll start with you. What's on your agenda for the school year? What are some of the issues that you're looking at this year to address?
So we're still working collaboratively with the school committee to frame out our formal goals for the year, but we have quite a bit on our plate in terms of big picture items. Over the past few years, we've been spending quite a bit of time on our social emotional learning initiative. We partnered with Yale University for their ruler program. We'll be entering our third year of that. The first year was dedicated to training teachers, and we started introducing it to students last year, so we'll continue to solidify the classroom work, and we're going to start to evaluate the program in partnership with Yale University and Harvard. Through a Tower grant that they received, they're going to be coming in and giving us some assistance on implementation and assessment. So we're really excited about that.
Could you explain the ruler program?
Sure. The ruler program is a methodology. It's not a curriculum to help teachers and students become more aware of emotional intelligence and how your emotions factor into your readiness for learning or any particular activity. So it's really a way of helping teachers develop their skill sets so they can help students develop their skill sets and make create more productive learning environments in school. Kind of adjacent to that is we've been working collaboratively with the police departments in Manchester and Essex to hopefully bring on board a resource officer. We have informal relationships now, but it's our hope that we can have a formal SRO join our staff going forward. So we'll be continuing that work into the fall. If anybody's driven by our campus or looked on our website, we're full into the Memorial School Building Project, which I'm learning takes a considerable amount of time and energy from everybody on the school staff. So they tore down the first phase of demolition this summer, and they're securing the ground to begin putting up steel in the fall. And we are on a really fast timeline. We are hoping to be into our academic wing. At this time next year, we'll be moving into brand new classrooms.
And this is the Memorial Elementary School.
Memorial Elementary School. So, I'm going to shout out to our staff because they have been kept out of the building for the majority of the summer. So typically our elementary teachers are great at coming in and starting to prep their rooms, but they weren't allowed in until this past week. So they've been fast and furious in trying to get up to speed. So that's going to be an exercise in flexibility over there this year because we're occupying the campus.
Right. I was going to ask you. That was one of my questions, and I'll just throw that in there now since you're talking about the update. So students and teachers are still going to be in the old elementary school building?
So I wish I had brought my charts and graphs, but essentially it's a kind of a ranch building with 3 different wings, kind of the shape of an E, if you will. And they removed one of the wings, and now they're going to be building the new structure probably 10 feet from the existing structure. So with our slight decrease in enrollment, we were able to accommodate all the students in classrooms in the remaining part of the old building. So the kids and teachers are going to watch that go up right before their eyes this year.
That's amazing.
So it's going to be really cool. Probably going to be a little disruptive, but we're going to be flexible and roll with the punches. And I think everybody's excited. There's a real tangible outcome to having to go through the process this year. So it will be fully complete in the fall of 2022. with 2 more phases of demolition and building to follow.
With the
So
gym,
yep.
and that would come later.
Yep. Next summer they'll take down the administrative part of the building and build the gym, the cafeteria, and the administrative offices, and those 2 pieces will be adjoined. So the final demo in the summer of '22 will be what is the gym and cafeteria now, which if we have folks watching, what's nice is the gym is going to be fully operational as the site of town meeting for Manchester, so we won't have any major disruption to our activities or youth programming as we go forward.
That's great.
So that's super exciting. Said the list was long. We are also beginning a 2-year strategic planning initiative. We've been conducting several third-party reviews of the district over the past few years, everything from our special education programs to the New England Association of Schools and Colleges review of the high school, and we did a New England League of Middle Schools review of the middle school. So we have a lot of data about what we can do to improve our work. One of the outcomes of NEASC was a recommendation that we develop a vision of the graduate. So in our kind of 2-year strategic planning process, we're going to go forward this year with developing that vision of the graduate. That's going to be a community school and community process. And then we're going to use that vision as the driving force behind a multi-year strategic plan so that we can achieve our goals.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so those are kind of the top 3.
Those are
My list is even longer.
Well, Rob, let's give you a chance to talk about your priorities for the school year.
Well, first, Pam, that's really exciting to be able to build a new school.
Yeah,
I've
that's
been
an
through
accomplishment.
that, and it has its challenges, and it's ultimately one of the best things. So,
as someone who loves learning, I'm learning something new every day in terms of construction and architecture. It's fascinating.
Yeah. It's
you
an
learn
amazing
about
experience.
keeping workers from smoking cigarettes on the property, all those kind of little mundane things. But anyway, we're all geared up and ready to go. Again, it's the most exciting time of the year. Our major initiatives focus on springboarding off of a grant that actually Manchester Essex was part of last year, along with several other Cape Ann schools sponsored by the Tower Foundation. So we're involved deeply in social emotional learning and the development of a fully functional RTI system, which is response to intervention, which is a pre-special ed referral so that you don't, if a kid is struggling, automatically sign them up for SPED or try to get them tested, that you work to try to find ways to reach solutions for those kids before a referral to an actual SPED process would be necessary. And that's really exciting to be able to focus on, kids that just, if you can turn around one of the challenges and obstacles in their life, you can make it so much easier for them. So that's really exciting. Probably our biggest initiative this year is a cooperative situation we have going on with the Gloucester schools that probably hasn't been heard about publicly too much, but contracts are about to be signed to do what's called a case study. And actually, the superintendent in Gloucester, Rich Sapphire, came up with a name, and it stands for Cape Ann Study for Education, which is going to be organized by the University of Massachusetts Donahue Institute, that is a think tank and has done studies of schools that have enrollment challenges and budget challenges around the state. Foremost was in the Berkshires. And they'll do the same thing for us, in which they'll look at a full continuum of our challenges and possibilities for our schools.
Mm-hmm. So Rob, set this up for our audience and explain, why were you starting to talk to Gloucester, and why this whole study is really important to Rockport?
Well, I think first of all, we're contiguous communities. We're very close to each other. We have a lot of students that choice into the Rockport Public Schools from Gloucester. Our enrollment has been dropping over the last number of years, not so much because kids leave, but because it gets harder and harder to afford property in Rockport for school-age families. And as that enrollment drops, there become questions about budgets and cost per student and what you can offer in your programs. We feel we have a very extensive offering, but some of what we can offer is dependent on a pipeline of students that come from another community.
Right.
So
what's the breakdown there?
Right now, out of 865 students, K to 12, there's 230 that choice in the vast percentage come from the town of Gloucester. So do the math, that's 27%. So basically 1 out of every 3 kids in a classroom, depending on the grade level, is not from the town of Rockport. And we try to sort of be blind to that. I'm not sure when I talk to a kid whether they're from Gloucester or Rockport, because some of them have been, with us all along. But that's a challenge that if you play that out, you wonder, if you don't start thinking about what the possibilities are, then 5 or 10 years from now, you may not be able to solve what those challenges are. So the discussion will be anywhere from, cooperating and different programs that we could be sharing right now in special education, which is a highly expensive endeavor for kids that deserve those services completely for their educations, but they're very costly, whether we can share those or not. And our technical center, Essex Tech, is a regional school that's actually very hard to get into. We had probably 25 freshmen that applied for that out of 8th grade, and I think they were only able to take 5 or 6 of those students. So those are kids that need something different, hands-on education in a lot of ways, that are not able to get that through our regional tech center. And if we were able to maybe access some of Gloucester's tech programs, because they have a very strong tech program, then you're talking 10 miles away, then rather than going to Danvers or wherever the tech is, and having to deal with that. And maybe some Gloucester kids can come over and do our programs.
So so this study by the Donahue Institute will take a look at that sharing, or would it just would put everything out on the table for Rockport and Gloucester to see?
I think the study's pretty open-ended, and I think depending on which lens you look through, the focus of the study is probably seen differently. I can't speak for what Gloucester's looking for exactly in terms of the study, but they obviously want what's best for their kids that are that they're educating in the best financial way that they can. If you look at it from the Rockport lens, you're trying to defend, rightly so, a small community school system, and to keep it viable and operating in a community where there aren't as many school-age families as there used to be. And if it comes time to have to ask for more support and more money through an override, which we haven't had one. I've been here 8 years now, and it was 2 or 3 years before I came here that there was an override. And the time has come again for an override.
And the override is needed for?
Because the property tax cap is not enough to fund salaries and programs and special services and all those kind of things. So it needs an infusion of cash at some point. And it's been planned and known about that it would come. And it just happens that the case study and the override are simultaneously coming to a head.
Moving
and
it
if
together.
you're a citizen in Rockport being asked to vote for an override, you have questions like, have you looked into other options? Have you looked into possibilities?
And
If
so
the
this
answer to that
Donahue
is no. That's not really very positive to a voter. If the answer is, well, strange you asked that.
Yes, we have it.
We have this, Donahue Institute study, independent, not with any axe to grind, that have come in and they've drawn the following conclusions. And then the community can wrestle with what those conclusions are and be able to look at those facts and decide what they want to do. And then they're better informed about putting an additional effort into the tax base to be able to support education, which I think the town of Rockport has always supported their kids and supported education. And I think as the leaders, we need to have answers to those tough questions for people that may not have kids in school, and they want to know, have you exhausted all the possibilities?
When will the study be completed?
Ideally, it would have been completed by November, but timelines get delayed a little bit, and it looks like right now that an actual finished report will be just before town meeting next spring, at which point there'd be an override discussion. So the community will be just having some focus groups and discussions about the results of that report at the same time that budgets are being put together and school officials are proposing a override of X.
Sounds
And
like the timing is right, like you said. And will the
it's not
report,
perfect.
the
but
report will be public so that
Oh yeah,
folks in
I mean,
Rockport
they'll
will be able
actually
to?
have a draft that will be put out, and then they'll have their final report. But I think the biggest part will be having focus groups in the community that will come together and be facilitated by someone like you or whatever, who basically runs people through the issues, and they can have a good community discussion about what that report says and what are people either willing to do or what they would choose to do, and then the town of Rockport will decide what directions are going to go in with regard to that, and that will frame the future of education in Rockport.
Well, Rob, it sounds like this is an answer in some ways to some questions that I get asked, or do you have any information on whether or not Rockport and Gloucester are going to merge, high schools mostly? Is there going to be a regional school? Would there be a Cape Ann High School? I mean, it's funny because I talk to a lot of people and this issue comes up all the time. So with the two of you sitting here, I just thought I'd throw that out there. And, Pam, let's talk about budgets in general, Rob and Pam, because budgets are such a large part of the overall town budget. And in Manchester, are you seeing anywhere that you're really squeezed, or areas that you're able to work within, or are you looking at an override in Manchester, Essex?
We don't see an override in the immediate future, but we do have on our list of things to do this year talking about budget priorities. I would say, just kind of jumping off the school choice point, we're almost in a reverse position from where you are currently, which is in our I would say in the first 10 years of the regional district. I recall that we carried about 150 school choice students at one point, and we're about half that now. So for us, that's been a reduction in revenue. And the only reason we've declined in school choice is because our resident population has increased over that time. We hit our all-time high, I believe, in 2014, and we were coming off a 20% surge in resident enrollment. We've leveled off a little bit, but we still remain higher, right around the 1,400, just under 1,400 students, so we don't have capacity for school choice. So one of our budget concerns is, with that reduction of revenue, that shifted costs back to the town because we're still maintaining the same basic size of a school district. I'll just echo Rob's point. When you ask about what are the general concerns of budget, the budget and the necessary components of it and required components of it grow faster than our 2.5 growth. Both my communities are incredibly generous. We work very collaboratively with both the finance committees and boards of selectmen in Manchester and Essex. We meet almost on a monthly basis during budget season and throughout the year to discuss kind of the state of affairs in all of the entities. And we probably average about a 3.2 to 3.8 annual increase. It plays out because of regionalization. This is something, it plays out differently in each town. So if we grow at 3.5%, it could mean that one town's growth is 4, while another's is 3. So I think that's always a juggling act. But again, very collaborative, very supportive. But it's just, dwindling resources, but increasing responsibilities. I know in our roundtable we talk a lot about the increasing scope of work that schools are doing. It's no longer just a place where kids come and get academics. We really are providing a wide breadth of social services. I think we do a great job at it. I think we have very dedicated people, but we've expanded the types of people we have on staff and the types of services we offer, but we're still working under an old framework for budgeting.
Right, so let's talk about those social services, because it has to deal with public health issues, certainly mental health issues and other social emotional needs for students. Whether it's housing sometimes is an issue, right? Or, and health
kids
issues.
They're just more challenged, I think. The pace of the world, the social media aspect of the world, the sort of desensitization of our existence has really affected our young people. And we're seeing it not just in Rockport. I think
what are you
everybody's
seeing?
it.
What are you seeing in Rockport? And what do you see when you talk to
I think we still hold
others?
on to a lot of personal parts of Rockport. I think that's one of the attractants. But there is a depersonalization You know, you watch kids sometimes on a field trip or whatever where they can use their phones, and the buses are very quiet because it's just constant chatter that you don't hear. Like years ago, you had to quiet down on this bus. Now it's sort of like you don't have to quiet anything down. So what they're exposed to is so much different than when I was in school or when Pam was in school. And I think that's really challenging for kids. They have to grow up really, really quickly in a ever-increasing, fast-paced, complex, confusing world. I mean, we talked about staffing. You know, people say, why is your budget going up when your enrollment is dropping? Well, we used to have one school psychologist, now we have 3 full-time school psychologists. Why is that? Well, because of the needs of those students, the testing needs, the social needs of those kids that have to be provided for aren't necessarily in the classroom anymore. We have 2 adjustment counselors on top of the school psychologist. So, and I don't think it's any different whether you talk to Gloucester or you talk to Ipswich or whatever. The shifting from the academic core to the social service aspect is what are driving our budgets. In a lot of ways, you don't find a brand new school psychologist at the lower part of the teaching scale. Generally, you look at it and you say, oh my goodness, look at that. They have X experience and their degree is over here, and automatically they're right at the top end of your salary scale and deserve that. But that's a fairly costly endeavor when you add that. So, I mean, that's this is my 45th year in education. And I never saw the kind of needs, either when I was a student or as when I first started teaching, that I see now. The complexity of the needs, the family unit is so much different than it used to be. In terms of families that have both parents working wasn't necessarily the way it was years ago, and just the issues that surround them and their exposure to those issues is so much greater than when I went to school in New Haven, Connecticut, you know.
So Pam, what are you seeing in Manchester, Essex?
So I think if we take kind of Rob's characterization of everything that we're dealing with in the broader social fabric, I think schools have assumed the role of, I think there was a time where our core function was to provide skill development and academic learning and preparation for work or college. And I think over time we've become better at our craft, and there's been a decline in resources available through the state and through municipalities in terms of mental health services and social services for students. So a bit of that has shifted to us because we understand that if kids aren't ready to learn, we can't teach them. So whether it's something as simple as the ruler program or making teachers more aware of emotional intelligence, that's one basic, what we would call a tier 1 layer, where we do what we can on a daily basis. We are also providing that level of mental health services and counseling, academic intervention, social interventions that we didn't do
and nutrition.
20 or 30 years ago. And nutrition.
You're offering meals.
So we've become
breakfast.
a broader service delivery system, and it's more costly. And I think it's good work and an important work, and we are positioned to take it on. But I think we're doing our best to communicate to the community that school isn't now what it was when we were in school. That the work is very different and the challenges are greater. But I don't think, regardless of the community that you're in, it may look a little different on the outside, but I think our kids are struggling with the same basic basket of issues and concerns.
And the complexity of young people today, it's not only what they're exposed to on their phone, which is different, of course, from pre-cell phone and smartphone use. But as you were saying, Rob, it's the families are changing, family structures changing, availability of supervision or interaction. I want to turn to the parents' role for a minute, because it's really always critically important. That's what we hear from schools. As a parent, you have to be involved in your children's learning. Of course, it helps a child learn more. And what do you see as the biggest challenge for parents or the parent interaction with schools?
Well, I'd say one of our biggest assets in Manchester, Essex is the parent community. They're incredibly involved and supportive. So I think there's a real strong partnership there. In terms of Can you give me your question again?
So
'Cause I
what's
think
the
I lost
role
track
of the parent here? You know, how do you
Sure.
engage parents? What are your expectations for parents? Parents want to be included in the school community, and
Go ahead if
Yeah,
you
well, I
want
was
to
just
jump.
going to say, I think we actually communicate really well, but it isn't necessarily what I consider the best communication. It's not always face-to-face. It's a lot of connect-ed messages,
emails.
spam the phone. You know, right now you probably have, 10 messages every day, including one from me about how wonderful the school year is going to be. And, our parents do show up at open houses, and very healthy that way, and they're very concerned. But they have lives that, when they're working and they need a communication, they're getting hundreds of emails in what they do. It's a little bit depersonalized in terms of that communication, but it's strong.
Well,
It's strong.
what do you suggest to parents then? Like, I'm a working parent. I have a teenager in high school. I try to get to every game. I try to get to the open houses. But there are moments where I just need to call the school, or I really need to get in touch with somebody. And
So it's funny that you gave that as a lead-in, because I think we're good on, the parents are already there and at the ready to help volunteer, to attend a game, something like a boosters organization. I think in our world of quick communication between text and email, we're going to be going out this year with a communication to parents in the first week to reinforce kind of who to get in contact with when you're having trouble with your student. You don't necessarily go right to the superintendent's office because something's going wrong in math class. And for the most part, people follow the protocol. But I think, if I could, reinforce anything, it's that, call your teacher first and start at the root of the problem, and see it as a partnership to solve a problem, as opposed to just transferring knowledge one way or the other.
Yeah. And I also see that schools, with the addition of school psychologists and these adjustment officers, there's help at school. So if a student or a parent is really seeing something they could call, right? If they're seeing mental health issues are so prevalent today, and our teenagers, that there is help at school. I think that's a vital thing. And so we're almost out of time, and I was wondering if you could just give us like a quick window in to your inspiration. And Pam, just quick, what inspires you in your work?
It's a very simple answer. It's the kids. When you mentioned you might be asking us that, I thought back, the whole reason I ended up in education is because of the kids, because this was never my intended career. I thought I'd be doing something along the lines of communications or law. Was very interested in politics, and after graduating from college, I decided I would teach for a bit and then go back and get my advanced degrees. Well, I just fell in love with teaching. I had a wonderful group of kids who made me realize that the hard work that went into teaching paid out in terms of helping to make the world a better place.
So Rob, just quickly, inspiration?
Yeah, ditto, basically, Patrick Swayze would say in Ghost, but the kids are still what it's all about. They're full of promise, and every day is so important to them that they have one shot at it.
Yeah.
And that's the exciting part. It's not like you can remake the tire part or whatever in some factory. Every single decision you make for those kids influences their lives forever, and that's the exciting part that keeps us young and engaged, I think. And we're surrounded by really, really great educators.
Yeah.
The superintendents group are tremendous people and supportive of each other, and I just think we're all, in this area anyway, dedicated to what's best for our kids. And I think our parents see that, our communities see that, and value that, and I feel really positive about education.
And a tremendous teaching force.
Right. Well, thanks so much for being on Cape Ann Report. Good luck to the school year, Rob Liebow and Pam Beaudion. Have a great start.
Thank you.
And until the next time on Cape Ann Report, take care. Check us out on social media. Also, we're on 1623.org if you have any things that you'd like to let us know that you'd like to see on Cape Ann Report. See you next time.